Hello, I just wanted to say thank you for coming. This is the very first video that I've done for my channel. I'm not sure if I'll be posting this later on, it depends how good I look. I'm just getting over some sickness, so I'm feeling a bit like shit right now, but I felt inspired to actually do a video. Lately I've been meeting a lot of people who have been putting a lot of videos out there, their spiritual beliefs, their ideas about the world, updates on their life and that sort of thing. And I thought, what a wonderful way of sharing. And so I thought to myself, why not take on a challenge and do something like that. I'm not sure how many videos I'll actually do, but this is a start at least. So welcome to the channel, and hopefully this is the first of many that I'll be able to do. So I guess let's do a startup. So I'm Ben, or Green Lion as I call myself right now. It's December 6th, soon to be December 7th, and it's 2016. I guess really what I would like to start with is telling you a little bit about my journey and where I've come from and where I'm thinking of going. You know, spirituality is something that's very important to me, and something that is a very integral part of my life, and it's created my circle of friends. It's helped me through some very difficult periods in my life, and it's only really been in the past 2 years that I've really owned my spirituality. You know, I think people are always constantly going through life and hopefully constantly changing and moving forward. But I think as I reached my 30th year, I started to see the world a little bit differently than I did 10 years ago, when I was 20. And of course saw it a lot differently from 20 years ago when I was 10. And it's really only been the past 2 years, 3 years, that I've started to take it very seriously. I've started to experience a lot more. Before, a lot of my spiritual, well, I don't even really want to call them beliefs, really. A lot of my spiritual ideas and how I saw spirituality and religious traditions around the world were very book-oriented, very grounded in academia, very grounded in what I was reading. And I was very lucky last summer to start to be introduced to experiential learning and experiential knowledge and learning through doing, and that's become a huge focus for my life right now. So where to begin? Well, well, actually, you know what I'll do? I'm going to show you some of my favorite tools right now. These are my toys I just recently got, and they are tarot cards and oracle cards. It's kind of an interesting thing. Let me just check that. There we go. A few months ago, I decided I was going to take a beginner's tarot class, and it was an interesting experience because when I went into it, I had this whole idea, because I've been using tarot cards since I was about 15 or 16, that, oh, I know all about them. I know everything. I don't need to learn anything. You know, I've been reading for people for so long. And so I took the course just really to you know, spend some time with friends and get to know new people and spend a bit of money too, because it was I think 50% off, which was very, very nice. So anyways, so I took this beginner's tarot class, and it was with a very good friend of mine down in Kitchener, and one of my teachers. And as I said, I went in and I had this ego thing about that I knew everything about tarot and that I didn't really need to know anything else. And then when I actually started the class, and we were using the Rider-Waite deck, which I'll show you, my little tiny Rider-Waite deck. I never really used them before, and I just happen to have these because part of my weekend business that I started a few years ago is selling tarot decks. And I never really used them. I never really connected with the Rider-Waite deck before, and it was very humbling for me to go through that experience, because working with a deck that created so many others, that was the source of so many of the modern ones now. It was very, as I said, it was very humbling, because even in first class I sat there, and the depth of the class was so much more than how I'd been using tarot in the past. My deck that I received when I was about 15 or 16, I found these while working at a library book sale, and I'd never had a tarot deck. Well, no, I lie. I did have a tarot deck before that, but I ended up giving them away because they were very the symbolism in them. It was based on Norse mythology, and at the time I didn't know anything about Norse mythology, so I didn't understand what the symbolism was, and they were very filled deck. Each card was very filled with imagery and symbolism, and at the time it was very confusing for me, so I decided to give it to a friend. But I found these a few months later, and it was a funny story because when I was in high school, I was a very nerdy kid. Libraries were my safe place. And so I was helping out with his book sale, and one of the deals was that I could go in and take any of the books that I wanted beforehand, as payment and thank you for helping out set up this big book sale. So I was rummaging through. I had a small box of books that I was going to take home, and I happened to find these, and these are called the Ancestral Tarot, or the Ancestral Path Tarot. And they're by a woman called Kuchia, or the artist is called Kuchia, and they're from 1990, and they are just a lovely, you can kind of see those, a lovely deck. They are based on, the 4 suites are based on 4 different mythologies. So there's Arthurian Celtic, there's Egyptian, there's Japanese, which is very interesting, and also Native American, and then the major arcana is just a mixture of those 4. And because I was a huge mythology buff, and I still am, the symbolism was very interesting to me, and they made sense to me. So I actually self-taught myself, because this deck came with some of the previous owner had taken the book that was given to them and cut out all the meanings and pasted them onto the back of them. So I don't know if you can just kind of see that on the back there. So what I ended up doing was I removed the meanings from the back, because at the time I had all of these ideas that I should learn myself, and the books, learning from books would make me inauthentic, Anyways, that's a whole other story. So I took the meanings off of the back of them, and I tidied them up a bit, and so I've been using these for about 15 years, and these are really my go-to deck. I really love these. But because I learned from these, I didn't learn from the Rider-Waite, which most people learn from. Well, that's their beginner deck, right? So taking this class down in Kitchener, it was very gratifying to be able to develop a relationship with a new deck, and especially one where one that morphed so many others and spawned so many others. So I can't really think where I was going with all of this, but anyways, basically, so I took this class, and I learned a huge amount. And Tiffany, who was running the class, she's been using tarot for 20 years, and she's been teaching the class for many years, and she uses tarot in her psychotherapy, which is very interesting to me. But as we were going through the suites, the more I sat there and listened, and the more we used the Rider-Waite deck, the more I began to understand how shallow my understanding of the tarot was before that. And I left, after I think it was over a 10-week period, and I left, and I thought, what, this has been a fantastic opportunity for me. So, that being said, let me introduce you to some of the decks that I've just recently gotten, and some of the decks that I've been kind of collecting over the past 2 years. Some that I think I'm going to become very important to me. Others I think will just be for artwork. So one of the other participants in this class was using a deck which I found absolutely fascinating, and it was interesting because when we were using the main Rider-Waite, you know, the imagery and the symbolism started to make a lot more sense to me because I was being introduced to it, right? But this other deck was a kind of a new, an interesting take on the Rider-Waite, and it's called the Tarot of the New Vision. Which apparently a lot of people know about. I'd never heard of it before, but a lot of people know about. And it basically takes the cards of the Rider-Waite and it shifts so that you're looking from the back of them. So to give you an idea, let me just find one here. So just randomly choosing, so we've got here the High Priestess, which is a beautiful card in the Rider-Waite deck, but here you've got, we see from the back of them. So you see all of the different new interpretations and the new symbols in that. You've got the owl and the pomegranate and the two priestesses. And just looking at all the other cards, it was interesting to then to look at these and to look at the Rider-Waite. And one of the other participants actually did a reading using both, so that each card had its double in the other deck, which was intriguing to look at. So I'm very, very excited that I have these. It's been quite a good couple of days looking at these. I was sick on Monday, so I had a lot of time to actually sit around and do nothing, so I was taking a lot of opportunity to look through these. There we go. So apart from those, I've been using quite heavily. A friend of mine back a year ago suggested an oracle deck that he uses quite a bit, and I love fairy mythology, and I love mythology anyways, but I love, and I'm starting to become more interested in English folklore and comparative folklore from Europe. And what he suggested was the Fairy Oracle by Brian Froud, who was one of the designers for Jim Henson Corporation. So he created some of the puppets, or the look and feel for some of Jim Henson's productions. And this deck, it's an oracle deck, so it doesn't follow the tarot pattern, but the deck itself is just absolutely beautiful. It basically goes through a full listing of different fairies. Now these aren't fairies from mythology, some of them are, some of them aren't. These are some of the, I guess, spirits, or some of the ideas that he had when he was creating this this deck. But they go from very transcendental spirit beings. So for example, there we go, the Singer of Transfiguration, which is very angelic and ethereal, to say something very earthy, such as fairies of the future, or honesty. So looking at these cards, and it's lovely because one of the first cards, or the last card, I can't think quite which one, is blank. And the invitation is that while you're meditating on these cards and you're using these cards and connecting with land spirits, you're able to draw one yourself, one that you work with. So it's quite an interesting deck, and I know this is one of many he's put out. You know, quite a few of my friends already know of this deck, and they've used some of the expansion decks. But I just love it. I love the earthiness too, and I think the imagery is just, I mean, just look at that. It's just so, it's so down to earth, it's so It's just gorgeous. It's I mean, visually it's very appealing. But for using them in meditation, it's quite interesting because although many of these are named, they are many of them archetypes, and so using them as in an archetypal deck, I should say. It's been quite a powerful experience. Now, I haven't used these very often because I'm still really getting used to them, but I do plan on using them a lot more in the future. Another deck here that I recently took on, I think it was in September I found this, and part of my spiritual journey has been very geographic. You know, I see a lot of I see my path basically through the idea of geography, and a journey, and that's a deeper story for another video. But I tend to look at things like landmarks, and I tend to look at destination points, and also figures that you meet along the way. And when I saw this deck, it really resonated with me in that idea, because I do tend to look at my life very much as a series of stage posts and destination points and signposts and figures along the way. You know, there's a set of people in my life who have become very instrumental, and I mean lately it's very strange. I've actually been meeting quite a few people, a lot of people online, but a lot of people in regular life as well, and I just look at them and I think to myself, you know, you're going to become very important to me. I don't know why, I don't know how, but I get a sense that you know, you're going to impact my life in a way. And already, you know, I've had people come and then people go out of my life who have become very important that way. And I'm only starting to realize what lessons they were imparting to me, you know, or what nudges they were nudging me towards. So this deck was when I saw it, I knew I had to have it, and luckily I was able to trade for it, which was quite nice. Because the price of it was a little bit too much at the time for me, but being able to trade for it was perfect. And it's called the Enchanted Map Oracle Cards by Colette Baron Reed, and I mean, visually it's absolutely stunning, and I have used these for a personal reading for myself, well, more meditation for myself, but there are a series of stage posts, signposts, and figures you might meet along the way, and it follows. I mean, this one actually, of all of them, does follow more of a tarot style, because it starts with that. It follows the hero journey, right? Of Joseph Campbell, the idea of beginnings and then going through tragedy and then going through experience and then coming back. But the cards themselves are just they're delicious, they really are. So for example, 47, the Sacred Pool. You can't really see that because it's quite bright right now. Or one of my absolute favorites, if I can find it here. Oh, here we go, Deep Freeze. Which is a card of stopping. It's a card of calming. It's a card of coming to a place of not ends, but of coming to a slowing down. But just, I mean, the imagery is just absolutely gorgeous. And one of my main favorite cards out of all of this, I'm trying to find it here because it's just, I have to show it to you. It's such a Fool card, but it's in such an interesting and different way. Now, if I'd been thinking when I started this video, I would have had it already out, but apparently not. So maybe I'll look to doing that next time, which will be to organize before I do videos. Well, just to show you some of these other cards here. So Balancing Act here. Isn't that just lovely? or this one is really interesting, and it's using symbols that I find are very like, even from a distance you'll know what it is, you know. So the stuck in the mud, and an elephant stuck in the mud. But what I find interesting with that is the little bird on the top there is a message to say that although you might be stuck in the mud, you might be helping somebody else see their way, right? Which I find is quite interesting. Well, I can't find it right now, but it is here, and it's called the Bone Collector. It's this figure of a wise woman surrounded by bones, and it's the very first card in the deck, and it's this idea that of beginnings, but also divination, right? Looking ahead while also looking back. You know, something that I've been working on myself lately, and something I've been developing for myself and really owning for myself, has been ancestor worship, and looking back to my origins and where I came from, in not a nostalgic way, but more as a looking back to look forward. And it's been quite powerful, and that's another video for another time. But this idea of bone collecting, you know, it's finding talismans that you can take with you along your path, and something that will remind you of your origins and where you came from, but also something practical and useful for you to use to look forward and then pass on, you know. So anyways, yes, if you are interested in a beautiful oracle deck, I would definitely recommend that, and especially for those of you who are like myself, you tend to see your life journey as a physical map. This is a very powerful deck for that, because it will literally point to you know, coming geographic obstacles or opportunities or gateways or lanes or people you'll meet, and I've certainly met a lot of people who have led me in the wrong direction in my past, and people even now who I have a feeling are not leading me or giving me the right direction, but many people who have also given me good advice on where to go, and pointed me in the right direction. So it's anyways, it's a very lovely deck, and I absolutely adore it. So that's, I think it's 22 minutes, so I think I'm going to end. That's just more of an introduction to me. So again, my name is Ben, and this is my haphazard life. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope that I will keep up with these videos, because I must say I do like this. I like this process of making videos, even in the past 23 minutes of doing this. Every year I attempt to start a blog or start a journal, and I find I just can't do it. So I've decided that I'll maybe just give up on that for now. But I would definitely like to share more, and also create a little community on this page. So thank you for tuning in, thank you for listening to my randomness, and next time I promise I'll be a little bit more organized. Anyways, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of December. Have a good day. Bye bye.